Well, welcome to Zen Live. I should start calling this your metaphor, the metaphor toolbox. Isn't that a good name? So I talked about this last night at Martini time. I hope you check in at that at 5 o'clock. And so as we've been going along, it seems like each talk develops a metaphor tool that you could put in your toolbox so you can use it to operate on your mind's operating system. It's very logical, and you need a metaphor. And today's metaphor is going to be a window. And each morning, as if you're just dropping in, it's hard to pick up. I take out a Eckhart Tolle quote from The Power of Now on these little box of cards, and I read the quote, and I prepare for the talk by writing down a metaphor. And then the talk, since this is live and it's spontaneous, will pull apart the metaphor, or pull apart the Tolle quote like a ball of cotton, to get the seeds of insight out of it. Most people don't use metaphors because, like on the cotton ball, there are little sharp thorns here. So people don't use metaphors because they don't want to get cut or pricked. But you can pull this apart without getting cut, without getting any blood on the snow. So, what's the quote? Excuse me. When you're aware of space, you are not really aware of anything except awareness itself. The inner space of consciousness. Through you, the universe is becoming aware of itself. Just as space enables all things to exist, and just as without silence there would be no sound, you would not exist without the vital formless dimension that is the essence of who you are. Okay. When you're aware of space, you are not really aware of anything at all except awareness itself, the inner space of consciousness. So let's get a metaphor to pull this cotton ball apart. The metaphor is a window, and your everyday world is the room. The world you see, the world I see, each of us lives in a room we call the world, and the illusion is, the grand illusion is that we all believe we're seeing the same room. We all believe that the room, the world we live in, exists as we see it outside of ourself. Now this is like the great assumption that makes a society work. It's supposed to work. The great assumption is that the world the members of the society see is a world that exists outside of them. And all of us, are inside this world. Now, obviously, everybody begins to have disagreements about what exists in the room. So if you take this room, your room, the room you're in, unless you're out in some field, the room you're in is the world, And if another person comes in your world, and our world rooms are full of other people, they come and they go, they're born and they die. They, by chance, come in, chance meetings or whatever. So the room is kind of like a nice metaphor for the world. And then we have arguments over whether that table exists, or who got the table, or where that couch, is that couch brown or is it red, you see. So all these conflicts and arguments happened about the world, but it's based on the assumption that there is one world that really exists, and we all live in it, and you just don't happen to see the world correctly. I see the world correctly. I see the room correctly. You don't. And we can't really have a fight with somebody over what's in the room unless there is an assumption that there is only one room that exists outside of all of us. And each of us wants to know, each of us must say by necessity that I see the correct room, the real room. And if I see the correct room, the real room, and you don't agree, well, then you got to be wrong. There can't be two rooms, you see? There can't be two worlds. But the assumption is that there is one world out there that exists on its own as itself outside of me. So if I were to die, that world would still exist as I see it right now. This is an assumption that is the basis to keep a society working, hopefully, like an anthill. You know, an ant colony, all the ants know what to do. But if you lift the rock up, the ants go all over the place. But then very quickly they organize and they're gone, and they have another anthill. So we spend a lot of time trying to keep the rock from lifting up over our society and making everybody go like that, you see. So all of our arguments between the left world and the right world are all about trying to restore, or to keep the anthill from going crazy. Anyway, I digress. So let's get back to this window. But you get the idea of the metaphor of the room. Now suppose you realize the Groundhog Day revelation. Remember that movie? The Groundhog Day revelation basically is the realization that you are going in circles, that you are repeating yourself, that you're on a roller coaster ride, and you've been on one, and you keep thinking you're off of it, but you keep getting back on it. That was the metaphor of the other day, the karma cart. And the metaphor yesterday was the labeling machine. The mind is a labeling machine, and so we label the room so that we know what it is, you see. Everything is good or bad. Get rid of the bad, keep the good. Someone else labels the bad good, the good bad. I know in my life, my little room, my little world, I see something sitting out there and I say that looks like trash and I throw it out. But my wife had labeled it something valuable. So I labeled it trash, she labeled it valuable. That's very common. But what is it? Is it trash or is it valuable? So how do we know if it's trash or if it's valuable? We have to open the window. So the idea here is that we're in a karmic room, and a karmic room is a room of conflict. You can call it the horns of dilemma. The horns of dilemma is that I say it's trash, she says it's valuable. You see, but it's the same thing. So it has two, one item, or maybe it's a good housekeeping that's been sitting there for 3 months. Or something, some piece of junk mail or something. Or I don't know, it could be anything. You know what the thing is. That's the horn, right? So I say it's trash, she says it's valuable. Right? That's a horn of a dilemma. I throw it out, she goes into the trash and brings it back in. But the horn of the dilemma is where you have something or some event with two labels on it. Which one is the right world? Which one is the right room, you see? The room has been divided into two realities, two worlds. My world versus your world. But it's the same room. So how do we get to the one room when we've got two? When we've divided the worm or the world into my world and your world, the left world and the right world, the liberal world and the Republican world, you see, when we divide the world into two, how do we get an insight into the one, into the truth that restores unity, that restores peace? How do we do that? So I want to bring Tolle's abstract quotes, beautiful quotes, and bring them down into everyday mind, where you can work with it, where you can work on your everyday mind as if it were a car that's out of alignment. There's a wobble in it. It drifts to the left or drifts to the right. You have to make effort to keep it on the road. If you dope off, it goes off, you see. Got to pull it back. It can't stay in alignment with reality. Your mind is pulling, is drifting, going in circles. You look up and, damn, I just did this before. So how do we do that? So opening the window. So Tolle says that on the outside of the window, if you look in our stuffy little room of karma, where everybody in the little karma room I always draw as the snake eating its own tail, that's caught on the horns of dilemma. It's a vortex around and around and around. Creates panic, uncertainty, all the negativities, all our anxieties and fears are part of the karma room. Oh, I've got to put karma here. Okay, the horn of dilemma, where each horn is right, wrong. Each horn is right, wrong. From my point of view, that is a piece of trash. From her point of view, the same thing is something valuable. Opinion wars, all of this is the room of karma. So the window, when we see that I'm getting stuffy in this karma, that my life is getting stale, that I can't breathe, I say, wait a minute. Pause. Let's open a window. So you go over and open the window. Now, what is the action involved in this opening of the window? In ACIM, they call this the holy instant. When you see the horns of dilemma, and you see that no matter what choice you make, you're cut, you're gored. No matter what you do, you're going to get gored. When you see that, at that point, you pause and you realize that you don't know what is true. You don't know if that's trash or valuable. You don't know what the label means. That pause stops labeling it, right? You stop the label machine, which means you suspend judgment that that's trash or valuable. You suspend judgment. Jesus just says, love your enemy. Accept the other horn of the dilemma, you see. Pause that passes, the peace that passes understanding, another popular word, nobody knows what it means. The peace that passes understanding is the peace that transcends judgment or understanding. I understand that that's trash. No, it's not trash. Keep it, throw it out, keep it, throw it out. You see? So if you suspend judgment, if you suspend having to make a choice, if you suspend labeling it, if you suspend the need for certainty, if you suspend the need to make the room, your room, the right room, the real room, and the other person's room, the wrong room, the unreal room, if you suspend the need to be real and defeat and to be a winner, if you suspend the need to be a loser, if you suspend the need to be either horn of the dilemma, if you just suspend the whole thing and just say, I don't know, but that doesn't mean If I wait long enough, I'll know. This is the mistake people make. They'll say, well, this will pass. So if I just wait it out, I'll come to peace or I'll come to know. Just wait it out. No, that's not what we're talking about. That doesn't open the window. Opening the window is suspending karma. Karma is the need for certainty and righteousness. So you keep churning up the water. You keep stirring up the pot in order, with the idea that if you stir it enough, it'll become peaceful. The pond will stop. The pond won't have any ripples in it if I stir it up. So this idea here is the suspension of one's intelligence. And one's intelligence is the intelligence of choice. I choose this over that. That's the smart choice. But when I get in a situation where this and that are both of equal value, you see, when I say that's trash, that's being trash is valuable for me because then I'm in control and I can throw it out and I make the room nice and clean. My wife looks at it and says, no, that's not trash, that's valuable because it's got a recipe in it that I want to use. And I'm saving it for a day when I want that recipe and I'll know where it is. And she'll pull it out and there's that recipe. Maybe 5 years from now, I don't know. But you see, the point is, my need to establish order, my order, overrides her need to establish her order. So you've got a conflict of two orders here. And an order is reality. Order is what makes reality. If you don't have order, there's chaos, you know. And in chaos, there is no choice. You can't choose anything in chaos. And if I can't choose anything, I can't choose myself. So I don't exist in chaos. That's why we're afraid of chaos. Because I can't choose anything. So I exist because I choose. So I exist because I choose that to be trash. And she exists because she chooses to be value. This is the dance and the fun of marriage. So this idea then, if you open the window, what do you let in? Now that you've opened up yourself into the space of awareness itself. This is what Tolle says. When you are aware of space, you are really aware. You're not really aware of anything. That means you're not aware of anything in the room, anything that you've labeled. You just are awareness itself. It's not like you are aware of awareness because you can't see awareness. Oh, there's an awareness walking around. Or what does awareness look like? Oh, you can't see awareness. So what does being aware of awareness mean? Well, it doesn't mean you're conscious of awareness because you're conscious of something. So awareness is not something. So it's not something, but then it is something. That's a paradox. So he calls it the inner space of consciousness. Well, what's the inner space of consciousness? Is it nothing? Well, it is nothing, but it's because it's space, but it's something. So what's the something? The something is insight. The something is intelligence. But not your little karmic intelligence that is going around in the room stuck on the horns of dilemma. No, this is the universal intelligence. You see, our culture has conditioned us since the Enlightenment, the 17th century, Newton, materialism, that the world is like a machine and it's made out of stuff. I was just writing on Facebook today, we're made out of stardust. Well, that's stuff. So science and what's his name? All the cosmologists say, well, all stardust. Well, what does that mean? That we're something? a little bitty speck. We're all just mud balls made out of little specks of dust. That's kind of like Yahweh in Genesis said he made everything out of clay. The dust, you picked up dust and made us go, whoosh, blow a little life and blow some intelligence in there, whoosh, and then we run around like Mr. Bean when he lands in the pavement in England. He runs around, you see. Okay, well, what does that blow? All right, well, let's bring that into this now. Open the window and God will blow some intelligence into you. But you have to let it in. And you can't let it in as long as you don't open the window. And you don't open the window because we're so busy going around in our little karmic circle in the room reality, trying to make my room, my value, my labels the only labels. So open the window. The pause that refreshes. The iced tea ad. So you suspend judgment. You suspend having to know. You suspend having to be right. You don't know babe's just not, I don't say, well, you're right and I'm wrong. No. Or you don't say I'm right and you're wrong. You just suspend that space. There's no action in it. There's no movement in it. There's no noise in it. So space is the suspension of judgment or choice. And then when you open the window, and this window opens, what comes in is, you could say, insight. In Zen, it's called Satori. And it's got a lot of different names. But something comes in, and suddenly you know what's true. And that truth heals the horns of dilemma. And it's creative. This is creative intelligence. The creative intelligence of the universe is the same intelligence that's running your body right now and telling your lungs how to work, and your blood and your kidneys and this whole ant colony of cells here. This divine or universal intelligence is telling it how to work. You don't have to do a thing except take it to the machine shop when something goes wrong. But it knows what to do. So this intelligence knows what to do. And when you open the window and let it in, you know what to do. You know how to solve the problem. There is no problem. The problems come from the horns of dilemma. This and that. That is this, you see. What should I do? What should I do? When this comes in the open window, there is no problem. Whenever, speaking about, the little games of my marriage, whenever I get an unfamiliar box, I can't open it. Turn it around, look it off, tap on it, try, I might break it. I can't get a screwdriver. And my wife comes in and says, here, pop. She knows what to do. I'm caught on the horns of dilemma. If I do that, I might be wrong. I might break it. Oh my God, help. So my wife is like an open window of intelligence, you see. She comes in, brings truth in the right way, you see. But I think we can find these metaphors working in our everyday mind. And I hope you can use this metaphor of the window of insight in your everyday room. So thank you for dropping in, and I'll see you at Martini time this evening.